This here is my trim saw vise that goes with my lower tone TS10 seesaw. And for the most part, everybody hates these. Nobody likes these vices. And I feel like part of the problem is not the vice, but it is how they're being used. Now, this one, like I said, is for my lower tone over there, but the ones for the high-tech diamond saws or the 10-inch trim saw that Highland Park makes, they're effectively the same thing. And I feel like, you know, what happens is people think they can do more than they actually can do, and they can do a lot. We'll show that here because we're going to be using this thing today. Let's talk about clamping rocks, cutting rocks, trim saw vices. This here is my 20-inch Spartan saw, and while it has a big vise, right? That's this here, this vise and carriage assembly. People see things like this for this 20-inch saw and think, well, maybe I should get myself a vise when I get my first saw. Except you're not getting a big auto feed oil saw, you're getting a 10-inch trim saw. And while the vices for those, they're a little anemic. People kind of think they can do something they can't. This is like a perfectly acceptable rock to cut in this saw, Arizona petrified wood. I can chuck it up in here and we can run slabs off of it. It can take a very big rock. Let me show you. So if I open this guy up all the way here, really, like, we can hold a really big rock and we can cut this into slabs. It gives us a lot of different options for cutting. When we talk about the 10-inch trim saw vices, well, we have to get a little bit more creative. The way these work, you have these two end points. This will get mounted onto the top of the saw there. And we have the vise, which can slide back and forth. This is where your rock goes. Now, one of the problems that you're going to come up against is, well, how about a rock like this? So this can very obviously be cut on a 10-inch saw, just an agate, right? But how is it going to get clamped in this thing, right? I guess we might be able to get away with kind of holding it here, right, like that. But that's not going to necessarily line up our cut exactly how we want it. What if you wanted to cut it like this? We start to kind of limit ourselves because we're going to back up the little carriage and we're going to run into the body there. Speaking of which, we only have a little bit of throw. Generally speaking, I would say this is not meant to be used to cut things like this in half, okay? It's really meant to cut tiny, tiny slabs and splitting rocks. So some of the manufacturers will show these things being used with something like this. This is obviously a very perfect block, right? And in this scenario, we would line this up with the blade. Imagine this white line here is the blade, and we could take our cut and we could scoot it over and take our next cut and scoot it over, take our next cut, so on and so on. But we get like what is that, like an inch maybe? About an inch of throw out of it. So you don't get much. You don't get much at all because you do have to clamp this. Or in the scenario of you want to split a stone, well, you're a little out of luck. You're going to be left trying to eyeball. Herein lies the solution that I have for you. So what we have here is we have a bunch of different rocks we're going to be cutting up today. And well, you might notice that they are on some blocks. Like we have this piece of lapis, we got some jasper, some rhodonite, some dinosaur bone, things like this. This is a great piece that we'll use as an example here. This dinosaur bone, it's quality material, relatively small, but I don't want to cut this in my big slab saw because I'm going to throw away so much because the 20-inch blade is pretty thick. So we have these wooden blocks, which are 1.5-inch blocks glued to these flat faces. I did cut flat faces on all of these, and it's glued with this. So this glue will soften in water, but it takes a while, which is great. That will mean that we can clamp these rocks like this. This is a little slab that I'm going to use for an intarsia piece, and we can clamp it in here. And now we can perfectly line this up with our saw blade and get a perfect dead straight cut on this. Similarly with Well, all these rocks here. So like that jade, some tiger eye, some rhodonite, some Cripple Creek jasper. That some of you guys might recognize that. Let me know if you recognize that material. You can drop a comment down below. But yeah, let's head over to the trim saw. One thing they all have in common is you have to align this. So you can see we get to push this thing back and forth. Well, if it's not in a line with the blade, well, you're going to have some twisting. This also shows one of the other kind of big problems with this is the limited throw. Now, here with this lapis, you can see how I want to cut this. I want all of this big blue stuff, right? None of the gray. And if we come in here and I start my cut, you can see, well, that's as far to the left that I get to go here, right? And granted, I can... maybe, can I get it over a little bit more with my hand? Yeah. So we can maybe come over a little bit more, but for the most part, we don't have a lot of side-to-side action. You can see if this was placed all the way over here instead of inset, utilizing the tabletop screws, we might be able to get better results. But really, these are all something that people kind of hate, that is kind of an afterthought for all of these manufacturers, but I'm trying to show you how we might be able to salvage it. So let's grab a rock. We'll get it all clamped up here, and we will take our first cut. For the first cut here, we're going to be splitting this little piece of jasper that I want to use for some intarsia. It's way too thick, and we're all lined up here. We should be pretty good. Using a very thin Jingling branded blade for this. Let's do it. Here is the little mini slab that I just cut, and it looks pretty good. I'm looking good here, I think, but you know what doesn't lie? The calipers don't lie. Let's see how good of a slab we actually cut side to side here. Yeah, that is pretty good. 0.117. 0.112, 118, 113, virtually like a flawlessly flat slab split off of another slab. Unfortunately, my rhodonite chipped out here. But you can see I have this very thin slab for doing some intarsia work and a slightly thicker slab, which is really nice. You want kind of very, like this would be a good piece for borders. That could be a good kind of main color piece that would get backed with another stone. I got the lapis in here and I used this as an opportunity to swap out the blade, try a different blade out. And wipe off the top, because one thing will happen is you'll get a collection of little bits here and your vise will drag on it. So keeping the top clean is really a benefit. Let's give this lapis a cut. I got it all lined up to cut that kind of gray piece right there, get that off, and then maybe we get 3 slabs out of that, even maybe 3 slabs. Not bad, that's a pretty good cut. After a bunch of cutting, some was good, some not so good. This one I dropped on the floor and it popped off. These ones came out really, really good, very flat, very perfect. So we have, those are gonna be good. Over here, we got our nice slabs of lapis, which those are very blue, very nice. It came out really good. The dinosaur bone, we still have this big end cut, which obviously I'm going to be saving. But we have that slab, This one kind of had a little chip out coming out of there. Not a problem though. So they'll call those good over there. Oh, I guess we save end cuts, but you know, that's not really what we're talking about. The jade, the nephrite, came out looking perfect, very flat, very nice. So that's a good one. The rhodonite, that's a very good very thin slab. So we'll call that one good over there. This piece here is a thicker piece because I wanted some edges, some strips, and we got that little nip right there that we can grind off or cut off. So that's good. These ones, however, not so great. So these ones, you can see what happened here. These guys did not hold up, and we did break off of here. They're not a loss. I'll probably dop these above that and grind that piece all the way down. So we'll count those as good, but not that one. That one will come off, and that one will be good. So I'm not going to tell you what this material is. You're just going to have to take some guesses. Obviously, we have a good, very good end cut of this jasper here. Very nice. Let's get some water on it. Very beautiful material. So we got one slab, two slab. This one had another chip out on it, but that's not the end of the world. This one will come off and our end cut. So really we had one operator error there, and this one's going to be kind of a loss probably. I don't think that is really worth saving, but we'll get it off anyways. Now we need to get these off of their blocks. Got a bucket with some water. These are all going to go in here, and they will float, obviously, slab side down, and the glue will release given enough time, and we'll have our little slabs off of this. So the glue that I used, this stuff, is not the best, but it is highly available to everybody. And you know, there's other options. Like you could use CA glue, and you could have, instead of a bucket of water, a ton of acetone. Acetone will soften up the CA glue over time. There's a lot of different options for doing this. I think it's a thing that is valuable and worth kind of looking into for doing intarsia work, or just kind of making these stones, I guess, more useful to you. You know, one of the problems that you have is you get these rocks sometimes and you're like, how are you going to cut them? You know, in the perfect world, stuff like this, you would probably be using wooden blocks with like a CA glue or something to that effect, and have a 12-inch auto feed slab saw, small slab saw, really thin blade, something like the old lower tone little box saws. Something like that would be great. I don't have that. I have that saw, I have my little teeny saw, and I got my 20-inch. So, you know, until I come across one, I'm using that little vise over there. When it comes to these little vices, I think they're probably not worth it for most people. If you already have one, my saw when I bought it came with one. So might as well play around with it, might as well use it. Unless you have something like I'm showing you here, a problem where you want to take a thick slab and perfectly split it, or you have some little odd rocks that you can't really seem to cut slabs off of any other way, it might be worth it, so long as you go into it with the realistic expectation that it kind of sucks. If you go into it being like, this is not a good product, it kind of sucks, and you know, you treat it as such, maybe your expectations will be exceeded, because you'll be like, look, like realistically, okay, so let's talk money for a second. What are these things, like $100 or whatever? Totally overpriced for what it is. But if I was to produce one piece of intarsia with this whole process out of a stone like this, I would definitely make all my money back. You know, granted, I don't sell rocks. I have no plan on selling rocks, but hypothetically, right, it is valuable to take your piece of lapis, and now I have something that I can incorporate into my intarsia work, and that's worth it. So Well, we got a ways to go until these guys get soft. Thanks for coming by, everybody. Thanks for hanging out with me in the shop today, talking about these little tiny vices. Let me know your thoughts down below. And yeah, I'll catch you in the next video.